Welcome back to the Rules of Engagement. Before we jump into our second segment, let me remind you guys, if you ever miss any of the action here, we do at Major League Gaming, perhaps WCS content, the championship events, the comments of the day, the Rules of Engagement, the top 5 plays, the play of the days, all these type of things we do here, NOS Pro Tips even. It's all available at youtube.com/official MLGSC2. A lot of content coming to you all the time. It's all organized into playlists for your convenience. And, of course, if you subscribe, it'll be updated when we put in new content as well. So go ahead, check it out. It's always a great way to fill in your day. If you have an extra half hour, just watch a YouTube video. There's a lot of great stuff there. You can even sort it out by popularity and find the ones that are probably the best. So moving on to our second segment, we're going to talk about a Roach Queen Nydus all-in ZvZ. First thing I'm going to talk about, every good all-in build should have a similar theme in the opening. I'll talk about that, how to open a good all-in and make it more successful for you. Next thing is, you should know how to keep your opponent busy without trying to give away the all-in, and also how to properly execute this Roach Nydus all-in. So we're jumping into the replay here. We're going to start at the 4-minute mark. And the one thing about a good all-in build, this, by the way, is Game 3 between Goswser and Revival from the WCS America Premier League. From their first series, they actually ended up having a rematch later in the group because Goswser wins and loses, and Revival loses and wins, and they end up in the final match to see which one gets through. But this is Game 3 of their first set. And one thing that's common is look at Goswser's build. What's really interesting about it is there's nothing interesting about it, right? That's actually super important when you do... every good all-in build should look identical to a standard build. Any deviation should be as hard to detect as possible from your opponent. And early in the game, this early, if it's a few minutes before it should hit, it should even be impossible to detect for someone watching your screen, right? Because early in the game, they might get a Zergian scouting, right? These Zergians could get into base, right? What are they going to see? They're going to see a normal-looking opening, right? Bane SV, gas is going down. It's going to look exactly like a normal build. And in fact, if he gets into your base again with some more Zergians in a bit, all he's going to see is a 4 gas, right? Because he saw the second gas being taken. A 4 gas in a lair. It looks like Goswser is going meatless, right? And that's even as Zergian gets in there, and he sees exactly what's going on. So try to make your all-in builds look as similar to a standard build as possible so your opponent can't figure it out. There's a general rule in Starcraft, unless you're significantly better than your opponent, if your opponent knows you're doing an all-in build and knows which all-in it is, you're just going to get rocked because you're going to prepare the appropriate amount of defenses and you're going to be in trouble. So, in fact, actually, if you want to see what happens if they prepare for it, watch the second series between Goswser and Revival, or even his games versus Pult too. When they were ready for it, didn't work out so well. And the next thing I'm going to do, right? So we can tell at this point, right? He's got the where's he got? There should be he got Roach War Nydus going down. So he's going to do that all in build, right? And at this point, if Revival sends an Overseer in his main, he's just basically in trouble. Because there's this enough of a heads up. Revival could probably just make sure there's no Nyduses in the main and build a lot of spines in the front, and Goswser probably couldn't win. But that's pretty uncommon to scout at this time, and not deviating your build until this exact moment means the scouting window to scout it is much, much smaller. The next thing you want to do is you want to try to keep your opponent as busy as possible, especially with Zerga. If you're getting speedings anyway, just be annoying with them, right? Play a normal game and be as annoying as possible. Now, you don't want to send your roaches out here or send anything that would give away the build out, right? But in a normal ZvZ, Zerg's going to be aggressive with speeding, so just make sure you're doing that. Make sure you're doing everything that looks like a normal build. And the more you keep your opponent busy with a small harassing force, right? Like if you're Protoss and you're doing an Immortal Sentry all-in against Terran off 2 bases, use your first Stalkers and Mother Support to keep poking at their SCVs, poke at the bunker in the front. Just keep them looking. And it's kind of a weird thing that in SC2, people scout when they're bored. It's kind of just the way it happens. They're like, okay, nothing's happened for a while. Let me see what he's up to. If you just keep sending your Mothership core and poking at one SCV in the mirror line and running away when the Marines come, little small things like that, well, your opponent will keep thinking things are happening when they're really not. Just like sending his speedings in and constantly harassing. I mean, there's obviously it's not like it's a foolproof plan, but the busier you keep your opponent, the less likely they are to go ahead and scout you out and figure out what you're doing. And now when it comes time to actually execute this build, one thing that's important is to have as many queens as possible. Look how Goswser actually already built up to 5 queens. As soon as the lair finished, he was building additional queens. And that's important for a couple of reasons. One, it's a great way to spend money. It just is. And then 2, It's also a great way you can send all your queens through the Nydus. Send every single queen through the Nydus. And the trick is here, if you look at his base, there's no queen. But the inject's halfway done. As long as you constantly build queens, in fact, ideally there'd be one building here as well, you can just, each queen that pops out, it throws down an inject and goes into Nydus. And in fact, even he doesn't have the insane economy, he's building pretty much exclusively roaches. So he doesn't even need to hit perfect injects, because not only is he spending money on roaches, and he has, you know, enough for larvae to build plenty of roaches, they're very expensive for his current economy, but also, if he runs out of larvae, just keep building queens, and the queens are a great way to spend money as well. They can stop Mulis. If your opponent gets 5-6 Mulis out, these queens will beat them up. Transfuses are extremely efficient. In fact, if you look here, the queens are tanking so much damage so well. Transfuses are going off. Queens also have no armor type, so right here doesn't matter too much, but in many situations they're one of the best tanking units in the game because nothing does bonus to them. Well, they have biological and psionic, so like snipes and archons, but you're obviously not worried about those in this situation. But the queens are a very, very, very important part of this build. Constantly reinforce with as many units as you can. Reinforce with the queens as well. And basically, if you kill enough drones at this point, I mean, he's already at double the drone count. As long as he doesn't die to the Mutilus, if the Mutilus ever even are able to be produced, he's going to be in great shape. And then, of course, the coolest thing here is as he sends his next Nydus, he knows his opponent sees it, right? And so Revival, as soon as he wakes up, is going to send these speedings to cancel it. And now, units come out slowly from a Nydus. So if you popped out a Roach one at a time, these speedings would not only finish off this Nydus worm, but then there would be like 3 or 4 Roaches out, and the speedings would surround and kill him. So this is why it was really cool that he actually built those Banings, and he has all these Banings in here. It would have been actually better if he got them out in the first fight, but he wasn't able to quite morph them in time and get him through the Nydus canal. But now as soon as he gets the Banings, everything absolutely dies. And, I mean, it's GG, right? 25 food to 70 coming in here, and Revival has to give up. So this was a really cool game. And now, yes, it was a short, it was a cheesy game, but these type of games are actually really important to learn how to play. Because, I mean, maybe if you want to grind ladder all day, and you want to just practice your macro game, that's actually probably one of the best ways to improve for most of you guys. But it's still important to understand the methodology behind these games. So one, you can appreciate it when you see the professionals do it, and two, you can understand how better to stop these builds. And so to understand how to stop them, you have to understand the key things to executing them. And the key things to executing any type of these you know, semi-cheesy all-in type builds is basically the opening has to look like a standard opening. And then two, you try to distract your opponent as much as you can. And so those are the 2 things to do if you're executing a build. If you're worried about facing these builds, what you want to do is you want to think, okay, my opponent keeps annoying me with like 10 speedings, but he's been doing this for the last minute and a half. That's kind of weird because in the last minute and a half, he hasn't built a 3rd base and he hasn't reinforced his harassing army, right? So alarm bell should be going off. It's the same thing for unit transitions, right? If you're playing Protoss versus Zerg, they do like this 30 Roach attack on your 3rd base. And like you kind of fight, and then there's 6 Roaches that run away, and then the 6 Roaches keep coming in and poking at you, and you're like, there's just still 6 Roaches that have been poking at me for the last half a minute to a minute. Why aren't there more? Well, probably because he's building 20 Mutilus, and they're going to fly into your natural and kill you, and you're going to swear about how Zerg's broken, unless you start realizing that if your opponent's keeping you busy with a small force, it's probably not because they're really bad at macro and aren't building things. I mean, it may be, but if it is, you're going to win anyway. It also could be true they're doing something secretly behind it. And so that's when you should really be cued in to scout more aggressively. So wraps up our analysis on this 2nd segment. We'll take a short break and be on to our 3rd segment, which is talking about how to play Zerg versus Terran from a disadvantage in Goswser versus Paul.